I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of information on the internet. And I mean a lot of information out there. Basically, if you've had a thought, someone else has probably also had that thought and posted about it somewhere on the internet, either on a website or a blog or a forum or a social media or written an article for a news story. It's out there, right? And so our goal this week is to become better citizens on the internet. How do we educate ourselves about the information that we see? So our kind of two main goals for this week are to find reliable sources. How do I validate whether a source is reliable or not? And then when I do find a source that I think is at least decent, how do I assess the strengths and the limitations of that source? So in this process, there's going to be four criteria for evaluating sources. The first one is kind of a given. Number one is just relevance, is how closely is this source to actually helping you answer the question that you had in your mind. So for example, if I am trying to study and learn about the effects of climate change on Montana agriculture, and I find a article or a study done about Australian wildfires, it's kind of related, but not really. I'm betting I could find an article or information about maybe this hemisphere that would suit our purposes a little bit better. So next one we'll talk about is the authority, or basically who the author or the organization is that is publishing this information. Are they credible? Do they have the research and the background to back up what they're saying? Has this person worked as a professional in the industry? Has this person studied this? So for example, I'm a great authority on English matters, right? I'm an English teacher. I've been teaching for 6 years, and I have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in English education. Yeah, I'm an authority on English. Talk to me about economics? Probably not, right? Just because I have authority in one area doesn't mean I have authority in another. So kind of from best to worst, obviously the most knowledgeable people are going to be professionals in those industries or actual researchers and scientists, scholars who are studying these things. Next best is like journalists who actually talk to the best sources and the best people. Obviously, there's a range of journalists because not all journalists are kind of on the same level, but generally they're meant to inform us, and most of them are doing a pretty good job. Second, kind of down a little bit further, is someone who does have authority, but is not talking about something that they have expertise in. So like I could talk about economics and finance. I have some knowledge, not a lot. I think I'm better than some, but obviously that's not going to hold up all the time. And then lastly is just going to be a random person, right? If you can't, you at least know who I am, and you can kind of follow up on my resources and ask me questions. Random folks on the internet, they really don't have to post anything about themselves. You could pretend that you're a doctor, or pretend that you're a lawyer, or pretend that you're a researcher, because the internet's a place where you can be anything. All right. Next one is purpose, or you can think about this as perspective or bias. It's kind of like why the information exists. It takes money and time to put things on the internet. It doesn't just sprout randomly. And so we always have to think who's putting up this information and why. A great rule of thumb is always follow the money. Who's paying for this information to be published? So read about me pages, read about the author, read about the organization who's funding this. And generally there's kind of two criteria about why something is published. So the first one is to entertain. That's not really what we're looking at today. We're looking at the other two reasons: to inform or to persuade, right? To inform people would be like just classic news stories or research articles, really just kind of pure data and information without any ulterior motives on it. Now, obviously, that's a kind of a small percentage of the internet. Everything else is opinion and me trying to get you to buy something or trying to believe something. And that's where the danger lies. So just because someone is trying to persuade us doesn't necessarily mean that their information is wrong. It just means that we need to keep looking for the other perspectives before we make a final decision. So look for those tendencies. Where is this information coming from? Next one is currency. Turns out that dates matter, and really looking at when was this published could matter a great deal. And it depends on which information you're looking at. If you're looking at information about COVID-19, yeah, dates matter. Think about how much things have changed in one calendar year. Right? Last April, we didn't know if masks worked. Today, we know that masks work. But if we're talking about something that's maybe a little bit slower changing, education, for example, um, a research article from 20 or 30 years ago might still hold relevance because human development doesn't change all that quickly. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different factors that go into education, so it depends on the thing that you're studying. But dates do matter, and what we're studying or what you're trying to figure out also has a play on how current something needs to be in order to be relevant. And then our last one is called accuracy. And really, what we're looking at for accuracy is just, do they have information presented? Do they have sources? Are those sources, do they look legit? Um, and are they trying to represent all sides or one side? Again, we could have accurate but incomplete information, especially for us from a source who's trying to persuade us, versus a source that's just trying to inform us. Hopefully, they'd be well rounded and accurate at the same time. So, again, just because something is a little bit biased doesn't necessarily mean that it's totally trash. It just means we need to filter that information a little bit and keep looking for other perspectives. All right. So here's a little task. I want you to press pause in this video, sit and reflect, and see if you can come up with definitions for these four terms: authority, perspective, or purpose. I'll call it purpose sometimes. Currency and accuracy. Did you do it? All right. Well, here's kind of my definitions of these things.